Okay, Mindy, so we've been talking about funerals, pre-planning. Let's talk a little bit about what we want to happen with our remains. We often talk to our clients about burial and cremation. I'd like to know a little bit first about what cremation is and the difference between burial. Obviously, we know that with cremation it's burning the body. How does that work?
So with cremation, there's a lot of requirements that come along with that, a lot of checks and balances. Cremation is a very final process. So we go through very stringent identification processes that the state of Oregon requires us to do before a cremation can take place.
Okay.
Cremation usually takes about 3 hours, and the person is reduced to that ash substance that is returned to the family in the urn.
Okay. All right. So now we've heard that cremation is much cheaper than an actual burial. Can you comment on that? Is that true, or?
It really depends on a family's choices. It really is a misconception with cremation that you have the cremation and that's it.
Okay.
Just because cremation is your final disposition doesn't mean you can't have a viewing. You can't have a funeral service, a celebration, a memorial service.
Okay.
You can do all the same things that you would do as if you were being buried.
Okay.
But instead of going to the cemetery, the person is transported to the crematory.
Okay.
So with cremation, yes, it can be less expensive than burial, but it can also be comparable to burial depending on exactly what a family wants.
Are people still buying a casket for cremation, or do people still get buried at the cemetery? I know that we have like niches and stuff like that at the mausoleums. And
So every family that chooses cremation has to purchase some kind of container for the person to be cremated in.
Okay.
That's crematory requirement. It can be as simple as a minimum cardboard container.
Okay.
Some families choose solid cherry caskets to be cremated with their loved one. There's many different ranges. It really is a personal preference to that family what they want to have for their loved one. As far as placement of cremated remains, there are a lot of cemeteries being used for that. Niches are a great example of that. There's also scattering. The other thing with cremation that people forget is you don't have to just do one thing with the cremated remains.
Okay.
You can bury part here and scatter another portion over here.
Okay.
You can place them in multiple different places. You can keep them at home. You have more options with cremation, and it's not a decision you have to make right away.
Well, that's interesting. So, do you know, are there any laws regarding scattering ashes? I mean, I would think, we're scattering somebody's body parts around, right? I mean, are there any
The state of Oregon
rules?
does not have any specific laws regarding scattering cremated remains. It's just recommended that you do not do it on private property.
Somebody else's private property.
Correct.
Okay, so you don't obviously
Don't go out and
I mean, and it makes sense. Obviously, you probably don't want to be scattering ashes on somebody else's property, but you could do it on your own. How about on public lands, like within the national forest?
Absolutely.
Okay. I know that there are a lot of people too that like to scatter maybe on the waterways, whether it be a lake or a river, the ocean.
Absolutely.
And
There
those
are
are
no
all okay.
laws regarding that.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else about cremation or burial that you think that we should know?
Both choices are really a family's preference. We can honor the person regardless of if they choose cremation or burial. There's many options with both. So there's not just one set thing that we can do depending on what a family chooses for their final disposition. Really, the sky is the limit when it comes to celebrating a life. It doesn't matter if you're cremated or buried.
Okay, great. Thank you.